Hello and welcome to Les Oderants' very special episode because it's just me on my own, which I'm sure you're thrilled. I'm sure you're thrilled about that. I'm doing this because I figured that people love my full 14. And I didn't want to deprive you of yet another one because we did miss an episode which I think may be appearing some point this year. So we're in 2023 now. It's New Year's Day as I record this. So yeah, I think that episode went missing. So there was 14 that you were deprived of, and the thought of depriving you of 28 is just unthinkable. So it's going to be a short one, but it's a little taste of the sort of normality and rigid kind of routine that you crave, and I'm going to give it to you right now. So on Monday, I wore Serge Lutens' Santal Majuscule, which that was my impression of Fliss, because she would probably say that because she likes Serge Lutens and all that kind of stuff. She'd go, oh, she'd probably say something, really Nigella Lawson kind of sexy at this point. I'm not going to do it because that would be powerfully erotic, and it would just our mainly male fan base would just probably wank themselves inside out. So anyway, so Santal Majuscule is a wonderful rose tinted, earthy, creamy sandalwood fragrance, which almost has, not in a reductive sense, but it has this like incense stick, and even like cheap shitty ones, like it has a little bit of that vibe to it, and a kind of like potpourri, like that sort of decayed rose accord that's just behind a load of like stuff, and it's just spicy and sort of woody, and the creaminess, and it's sort of rounded, and it's slightly otherworldly with the sandalwood. I, I think it's one of those fragrances that you wear and you think to yourself, well, I've not worn this for a while, but it's spectacularly good, and I love it. And I mean, I've got a reasonably recent bottle, I think, because it's one of those that I'd admired from afar for a long time before I actually got it. And I think because I used to sort of hoard, I used to get quite a lot of Serge Lutens samples, and I remember having tons of these. I mean, like I probably shouldn't say this, but I'd befriended some shop assistants in places, and they'd literally sometimes they'd give me like a whole packed, like cellophane wrapped thing of samples with about 20 carded samples on it. Do you know what I mean? And they'd just kind of be like, yeah, stuff these in your bag or whatever. I won't like mention where that was. But yeah, so I'd have loads of like things like Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I've had loads of that brand. Hence why I probably didn't need to buy the oud, even though I quite like the oud. I don't really like the satin moods and all that. But anyway, Serge Lutens was another one where I got given loads, and I seem to remember having loads of these Santal Majuscule samples. So I've never needed to buy a bottle, but now that I have, I honestly got to say that it's it seems as good as the old versions, right? Because, like I say, wore the old versions quite extensively without actually having a bottle, and I can't really perceive much of a difference. It might be a bit weaker, maybe. I don't know, but some people I think have said that the reformulation's rubbish, but I honestly can't really I can't really speak on that. I love my bottle. Anyway, so then the next day, which is Tuesday, which follows Monday, Bentley for Men Intense. This is another one that was a kind of hyped fragrance, and it's one of those. I think before it even became really sort of hyped, it was one of those fragrances that I bought into some of the people saying it was good, particularly on like forums and stuff like that. Because I'm not immune to that, and I don't discover everything despite what people might think that I think that I do, because I sometimes quite arrogantly go, oh yeah, I like discovered that. I'm fucking joking, that, I'm kidding around, but also sometimes it was true. Anyway, yeah, so in this instance, no, I think I did see some sort of hype somewhere, maybe on Base Notes or Fragrantica forums or something, someone talking about it, and I thought, oh, I'll try and seek that out. Well, it was difficult to find, and quite difficult even online, because like loads of people were buying it, and I think they probably did inflate the prices places. But anyway, I couldn't seem to find it. But Bentley seemed to have like an affiliation. I don't know, they're probably from the same parent company as Lalique, I don't know. But they seem to have some sort of, like I say, an affiliation, because they've done some fancy flacon with the Bentley logo and stuff like that I seem to remember, that are thousands of pounds sort of collector's things. But the Bentley fragrances are notoriously affordable in the normal bottles, which are actually pretty nice anyway. But okay, so Bentley for Men Intense, yeah, I thought, okay, I'll blind buy this, and I think I can't remember whether it was this one or another Bentley. I went into there's a glass shop in the town where I live, and it sells really beautiful glass work that is, not really affordable to people with a normal disposable income, unless you love glass, which if I was going to collect any antique or anything like that, it would be glass. So I appreciate that. The artistry and the sort of value. Someone might look at it and go, why would you want that for like $1,000 or something? Because somebody has shaped that. They've made it out of nothing, just a kind of amorphous blob of essentially like liquid molten stuff. I'm going a bit off tangent here, but anyway, I think I went into that shop and they had Lalique perfumes and they had the Bentley perfumes as well, and I think the first one was a bit rubbish, the signature kind of normal one. It was okay, but it was nothing to write home about. And then they did the other one, which was basically another, I don't want to say clone, but a similar version of Gucci Pour Homme by the same perfumer, Michel Amarac. So that's kind of legit and okay. And then they did this one, which I think has elements of very amber, sort of forward kind of perfume, but it has almost a little bit of that sort of, it reminds me of L'air du Desert Moroccan a little bit. People might think that's strange to sort of say that, but it's a really full-blooded amber, certainly not what you would expect from a Lalique. Sorry, not Lalique. It's not Lalique, is it? I'm saying that it's Bentley, but essentially a sort of cheap and cheerful fragrance from a luxury car brand that is destined to end up, as a really cheap thing that you'd find on discount sort of websites and stuff. So yeah, I mean, what a triumph this fragrance is. It is absolutely spectacular, and I had a wonderful experience. I put a little heart next to it here, so that means in my notes that I had a wonderful time with it. Yeah, just a spectacular, spicy amber, has some of that kind of sandalwood heft underneath, but it's a very beautiful, woody, sort of spicy amber fragrance. I love it. Okay, so then we have Nikolai New York Intense. I don't really need to say a lot about this one, but I think I love the bitterness. I love the fact that it's a really full-on aromatic men's essentially fragrance. Although a lot of women wear it and stuff, and it's. I mean, I don't know why I have those masculine sort of perceptions of it. Maybe because it's in the same sort of mold as like a Dior, Eau Sauvage, or something like that. I think I love the bitterness of the kind of bergamot and moss and the sort of almost slightly off kilter, patchouli kind of vibe to it as well. It's very. I'm surprised that it's so popular with people. I don't know. Maybe it's because they crave that sort of bitterness, but it is a very mossy perfume. But anyway, that's it. You know what it smells like. If you don't, go and check it out because it's great. And I think the other members of the Les Oderants team are all on board as well with that one. So then on Thursday, I wore Amouage Epic 56 Woman, which is the 56 refers to the concentration, so they've upped this to an extrait, and it's Epic Woman. So Epic Woman is by what's her name? It's gone out of my head. This is why this is all unedited, as you can clearly tell. Cecile Zarokian, there you go, who made the original one, and it's wonderful. I kind of always liked it better than the Epic Man, to be honest, and this 56 version is just, it makes it even more epic, right? If there was such a thing, I'd just say that I don't think Dan will particularly like this. Certainly not in the opening, because it is a really full on pink pepper fragrance. I mean, pink pepper is a kind of a top note, but really it sort of permeates through into the mid of this fragrance, right? And it's such a long-lasting experience. I can't remember the wear of Epic Woman particularly well, because it was a long time ago, but I seem to recall this is essentially what they've done with this is kind of stretch out the period. So the first top notes of this kind of sparkle of resins and pink pepper, which is just relentless, right? Lasts for a longer period. So it's essentially the same transitions, but it just lasts a lot longer in this original one, so it's way more drawn out. So I think I recall how it's a 5-hour mark as being when the pink pepper starts to sort of die down, and all that sparkle of like olibanum and that really resinous kind of fresh but like sparkly woody kind of clarity that it has just starts to go, and then all of a sudden, like that, it just becomes a really woody kind of dark rose oudish type fragrance, but not cliched in any way. And the fact that it has all that, and you can still get a bit of that sparkle, it's still sparkling away in the background, so it's not even fully gone. But it is quite surprising, because I don't really smell that much rose or any of that sort of dark woodiness, even some patchouli as well. It's like, it's just an earthy like thing that just kind of it's quite suddenly, but again there's still a transition, it changes, and again then you're just like, this is such a treat, I'm just being treated to this amazing thing. And then I want to say there's a third phase of like real kind of bass notes and stuff, but I think maybe you can smell some of the like sort of muskiness, and maybe it gets a bit softer towards the end, but it's just brilliant. It's just absolutely just a triumph, and I think like hats off to Amouage for these these stronger concentrations, because I've tried some of them. I haven't tried the Reflection one, but I've tried the Interlude and maybe another one. I don't know, but I thought it's a bit like, this is a bit of a gimmicky idea. What are they doing here? Just rehashing the same old fragrances. Well, no. I mean, it is. There's definitely merit in this this sort of endeavour of doing these new concentrations. And yeah, so far I think, like I say, the two that I can remember trying were really good. So I figure that they all are. Anyway, so that was that one. Then I wore Les Oderants Rose Jamal, which again is probably one of my favourite rose fragrances of recent times, I would say. Smells very rounded and sort of natural, but also has this kind of very modern rose chypre, which is quite synthetic really. Also has pink pepper as well, which is very complementary with rose, but about as different as it could be from the epic woman that I just described. It's completely different. I mean, softer base, much more like there's a sweet sort of fruity element to this as well in the top notes, to sort of go with that rose, and it's just beautiful, like, and it doesn't smell, again, typically like those sort of naturalistic roses where you're like, okay, this really smells like a particular Rose Absolute or something like that. It's a very subtle kind of approach from Antoine Lee, and I think it's Antoine Lee. Antoine Lee does most of these, so I'm sure it is him. And Les Oderants, just fantastic materials. I don't need to keep saying it, and fucking fanboying out on this brand and these fragrances, but they're just great. And Rose Jamal just really spoke to me. I think some people compare it to, there's a Le Labo. And again, upon revisiting all these Le Labos as well, I'm kind of like, they're really good as well. So maybe I like that there's a kind of modernity, there's a sort of modern approach to this kind of rose, as well as having a sort of deep rooted kind of traditional style to it as well. But yeah, I think, just coming back to the Labo, I think like maybe I should revisit that rose one, whichever rose it is, some rose and a number. I should revisit that, because if it smells like this, then it's a great perfume. End of story. I think people were kind of saying it as a sort of diss, to be like, oh, it smells like Le Labo. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, because they're slightly annoying, kind of twatty, beardy fucking hipster brand that they are. I kind of like a lot of the stuff, and I kind of think it's good perfume. Like, I think some people say they feel a bit unfinished and stuff, but I don't know about that. I think they do sort of what they're intended to do, and they've actually got a pretty strong back catalogue from just revisiting them. I think they're pretty good. Anyway, that was a bit of a detour, as usual. So it just proves I don't need other people to go off on a fucking tangent. I can just talk shit by myself. Anyway, so John Varvatos, Black Rebel? No, Dark Rebel, which was a perfume that I sort of... I tried. I remember trying it in store and kind of bought on a whim, really. And it's very complex, and it is dark, and it's kind of resinous, and it has a slightly fruity, almost like berry facets to it. Has a slight like smokiness. I mean, for a designer perfume, it stands out, and it was very good. And I thought, wow, this is a really interesting piece of work. I mean, it's not the most kind of refined thing in the world, and all that kind of stuff. But I think the Vivatos kind of line generally has some reasonably sort of interesting things in there. It's never going to be up there in terms of quality and everything, but I do quite like some of them, so I was reasonably taken with that one. And when I do wear it occasionally, I'm like, yeah, it's all right, so there you go. Also received quite a bit of hype, that one, from some slightly undesirable YouTube types and Instagram people, but less said about that the better. Mugler over the Musk. I noticed that Dan was wearing that, I think today maybe, on Instagram, so shout out to Dan. He loves that perfume, and it's great, and it kind of seems a bit like cheap and sort of easy. I don't mean cheap in terms of it smells cheap. I mean like it's sort of, there's a perception that it's easy to do a sort of minimal musk perfume, and in some regards it is, but in others I would say it's harder, and I've described this before, and maybe I'm like it's grandmothers and sucking eggs, and you've heard this shit before from me, so sorry, but that's, you ain't got any other relief. There's nobody else here, so sorry. But I tend to think it's almost like a fog. It's like a fog of musk, and it's almost like cotton woolly, kind of like thick, and you're sort of going through it. It's very cozy. Again, Dan will love that. It's very cozy, and it's very kind of it's sort of engulfing you, but then there's little twinkling little gems that just like emerge, like you can just see them like through this kind of fog, and you're like, oh, nice. And they're very temporal. They just appear and then they're gone, and that's how I feel about Over the Musk. It does things that like it's more of an experience than something that you can really sort of explain, and I don't mean to sound too sort of twatty saying that, but it is, and a great musk perfume is that. I mean, there's been some others that have sort of that kind of glimpse that, but they don't fully kind of give it to you when you're wearing them. So there's a Serge Lutens one which is slightly animalic and has a little touch of that, but it's also kind of white musky. Then there's like that Musk Therapy by that Initio brand, which I don't particularly love, but that's a good musk perfume. There's The Musk by Essential Parfums, which again has those elements of that sort of like clean, for want of a better word, those kind of connotations, as well as like more sort of dirty and maybe metallic and slightly musky elements, as well. Again, musky elements is like the most kind of easy sort of get out thing to say, but whereas Over the Musk is more of a ambrette seed, that kind of musk that's, I want to say, almost vanillic. This perfume certainly is vanillic. I would say there's a vanilla element, whether it's from a bit of like tonka or a bit of like benzoin or something, or even vanillin. I don't know. There's something giving a slightly sort of vanillic quality to it as well, just like giving it that little bit of sweetness. But it's definitely not anywhere near cakey or anything like that. So anyway, that's Over the Musk. It's great. If you haven't tried it, I recommend that one pretty highly. Then the following week on the Monday, I wore nothing. I wore nothing at all because I like to have these kind of tolerance breaks, if that's what you want to call it, if that's what I want to call it. And the truth is, sometimes I just forget to apply perfume, and you think, you're pretty obsessed with perfume. How do you forget? Well, I'm a busy man. But no, I didn't actually forget on this particular day. I thought I'm not going to wear anything today and just vibe out on the wind, and I did, and there you go. So I don't know what other people's feelings are about that. Stick it on a stamped addressed envelope to Les Oderants. That don't do that. So anyway, yeah. Then we have Roger Dove Enigma. So this was on Tuesday. Was that Christmas Day? Was that Christmas Day? Was it? I have no fucking idea. No. Was it? Hang on. No, maybe I wore Rose Jamal. Maybe I wore... I don't know. Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was. Was it? I'm losing the plot. Right. Anyway, I wore that. Well, I'll just say that on Christmas Day, and, I don't mean to kind of be sort of, too sentimental here or sort of dig into my private life, which is mostly lived like an open wound anyway. So yeah, on Christmas Day, I proposed to my long-suffering missus. So we'd been living in sin, with kids out of wedlock and all sorts of stuff for like a decade. So it was about time really that I stepped up and did the honourable thing, and so I did that, and it's very, very joyous, and it's kind of double whammy for sort of Christmas because the engagement ring sort of is quite a large part of the presents that I didn't get her. And it was also her birthday as well, which and I had been sort of attempting to do it before that, and like we went out for a night out, and then she was like, oh, let's go and pick my friend up, who's this really sort of fabulous gay man who like got in the car and then was like, oh yeah, let's go here and let's go there. And I was like, Jenny, can we go do you fancy going for a little walk with me, like down the river, a bit of a romantic walk? Why would I want to do that? And I was like, I had the ring in my pocket and everything. I was like, well, no, like me and Ken are going to go, to see a fucking Michael Bublé tribute act and get pissed on fucking Lambrini or whatever all night, and see you later. I'll be back at like 3 a.m. So I was like, I'm trying to fucking propose to you here. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, I was like, right, all right, okay, I'll go home then. So a few little disasters like that where I wasn't actually able to pop the question. So I did it on Christmas Day. Anyway, that's just a bit of insight. So I was wearing Roger Dove Enigma, and that is a special day sort of fragrance. It's lovely. I mean, that's the EDP that I've got, which is that kind of old school. No, sorry, it wasn't. That wasn't on Christmas Day. I was wearing Over the Musk when I popped the question. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So the next perfume that I wore was this Roger Dove, and I love it. It's kind of boozy. Again, vanillic, but like has this kind of rum sort of like quality to it, which usually I'd be like rolling my eyes at and like, smells like rum and raisin fucking ice cream. But this is like deep and sort of rich, and actually deserves somewhat of a high price tag. I kind of value it as a perfume. I think it's really good. I believe some of the batches are quite like changeable and what have you. But mine's pretty old in that it's got a paper label on it, which is something that Roger Dove I think changed quite a while ago. But it's my only Roger Dove that I own because frankly I can't afford any of the other ones. But again, we won't get into the ins and outs of the actual perfumer himself or themselves, but I do love Enigma. I've got a huge like soft spot for it. I think it's a really sophisticated perfume. I think it has like that kind of labdanum that just holds everything together. It's not even a main sort of feature. It's just it has this kind of lightness of touch, if whatever you want to call it. It's really just lovely to see, and it kind of honors all that sort of classic perfume, and I think it's great. So Enigma EDP from Roger Dove. So it's not the new Virgin, the cologne or whatever. It's not the Parfum, which is really good as well, which I've tried. It's the EDP, which it's just excellent. Then I wore Burberry London, because I hadn't worn that over this Christmas period, and it is a very Christmassy perfume. I think I said in my review that I kind of, it's one of those things. It's like mulled wine. It's almost like you feel like you need to have it when you go to the Christmas markets in Manchester or whatever. You know what I mean? You're walking around, you think, oh yeah, I'll have a bit of that, and you actually have it. You're like, this is fucking horrible. It should be nice. It's wine. It's a warming drink, on a cold evening, and it's got spices in it. It's lovely, spices and all that shit, but it's actually fucking gross. So that's what it's got a mulled wine aspect to it. And I actually think it's a really, as much as I kind of don't love it, and I think it's quite thin, and it's not really very sophisticated or a particularly great perfume, I like the strange juxtaposition of those kind of like almost like cherry cough sweet. It's like those kind of soothers with like pine needles, really strong, like really strong in your face, sort of piney kind of terps, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's a really impactful perfume. The fact that it's still in production, I mean, must mean it's somewhat popular. And it has a little Burberry little jumper on, doesn't it? Which is pretty cool. I just, like I say, I have a sort of soft spot for it. I sprayed loads of it on this particular day, and it's just such a weirdo of a perfume. Yeah, so I wore that. Then I wore Moschino Forever, which I think I wore the same jumper. Well, I did wear the same jumper as the Burberry London from the previous day, and I was getting weird clashing stuff where the Moschino Forever actually went a bit weird, and it started to go more, I could smell more of this sort of cheesy fougere aspect to it, which it doesn't normally have, to be fair. I think it's more like sparkly and resinous usually, and it has a kind of that bright like lemony incense kind of top into actually a cheesy sort of fougere warmth, but in a kind of really cheap fragrance kind of style. But I like it, but I think the interaction with the Burberry London on my clothes made more of that kind of cheesy sort of base come out, and I kind of went, actually, for the first time, because I love wearing Moschino Forever, and I'm always surprised how much I really love it every time, and I wasn't that enamored this time. So that's all I can put it down to, that it was some sort of interaction with that piney shit from the day before. Now, I don't often do that. It was only on like a jumper, like around the sort of collar. And I hate that kind of clashing of fragrances. I don't like to do that, but because I sprayed so much of the Burberry London the day before, my clothes were like pretty saturated with it. Anywho, then I wore Nasamato Joro, which Nasamato is another one of those kind of brands that, like, there's two. It was reasonably exciting at the time when they were sort of first around, and I kind of liked the bases that they were ticking off, and I sort of really enjoyed Joro the most, and I think the inspiration is a kind of sweaty like crack, not like a bum crack. I mean like the inside of a thigh, like next to a set of junk, that kind of like sweaty, and I mean it's reasonably gross. Like I think I think Ben would be interested in this aspect of the conversation. But the thing is about it is it's a really synthetic wood accord. There's loads of cashmere, and it's like just absolutely brutal in its woodiness. It's essentially what you would call an oud bass, right? So it's like that catch-all term of like anything can be oud, and that's pretty much what I get from this, because it's musky and extremely woody to the point of and saffron, right? I get a really saffron, but it's a very plasticky. It's not very nuanced. Doesn't smell very natural like saffron. It's like this relentless twang of like leathery, sort of animalic, slightly dirty wood, and it is a relentless perfume, and that's what I love about it. And frankly, it's one of my favorite Nasamatos, and I do love that it's just unapologetically synthetic. So I think out of my Nasamatos that I'd be keeping, that's definitely one that I would keep. But I think if a perfume came out now, I would be probably quite critical of it if it smelled this way. And maybe that's unfair. And I think there was a time and a place, and this is another thing that I think maybe we might get into this in an episode in the this year, to talk about things that were of their time and place. And I think Nasamato was very much of that sort of, was it like late noughties, like predating a lot of the overt like fragrance community, like people reviewing fragrances and hyping things, and to the degree that it became, they sort of predated that slightly, but were kind of the first set of like hype train kind of things, maybe, which is interesting to sort of think about. But now you'd go, I might go, maybe that's a bit old hat. I don't know, but I still like Juro for what it is, and obviously it means hard, and it was to do with kind of crotches. So there's that whole hard on sort of kind of implication there. If you think like that, if you've got a dirty mind. Oh, you dirty boy. That's so bad. Sorry, that was supposed to be Fliz. That's quite good. Again, powerfully erotic. Our fans will be loving that. Right. So, Guerlain Essence Mythique, which I wore yesterday, and I think this is one of those kind of magic elixir type perfumes that just, it does something that I think they really captured something in this perfume that is just the kind of people that would say, I fucking hate Ambroxan, oh blah blah, don't like it, don't want it, it does my head in and stuff. I mean, this is the most sort of the most kind of Ambroxan heavy like perfume, but the crucial kicker is that it kind of steers it away from like that relentless, well, it is relentless anyway, but that sort of woody amber kind of aspect as well, and more into this kind of very naturalistic, the je ne sais quoi of real ambergris. So again, there might be real ambergris in it for all I know. I don't know, right? But there is some magic that Thierry Vasseur has done here, where this perfume has little kind of powdery, almost a little twinkle of like that rose musk note that kind of runs through like a lot, well, accord, whatever it is, that runs through a lot of these this line of perfumes, which are much maligned, really. I mean, a lot of people don't like how synthetic they are. They don't like, but this one tends to get a bit of a pass because it's just so like majestic. And then all of a sudden you'll go, oh, well, actually, all this like powdery sort of diffusive kind of whatever it is, then goes into, oh, okay, it has a little nosedive on the end of it where you go, oh, it's like saliva on skin. It's kind of like a little bit kind of almost a little bit halitosis kind of quality for a moment, and then you go, oh, actually, okay, and then there's all this kind of sweet sort of like relief. It's a bit like, reminds me of, like, just to make a kind of music analogy, it sort of reminds me of that piece, is it called Staircase, from Vertigo? So it's Bernard Herrmann. It's very much like that. It's like dizzying, like, and then huge, like, ba-bam, and then it sort of goes, you know what I mean? It sort of like takes you into this kind of dizzying, like, oh, and then it goes all kind of beautiful for a minute, and then a bit more sinister, and that's the kind of ride that I sort of get from this perfume. It's just wonderful, and talk about like strong. I mean, you know, again, I could sort of still smell it this morning when I got up, and excuse me, even when you have a shower, you know, it's a pretty relentless perfume. I mean, I deliberately only did like 3 sprays or something, but that will see you through, and people will smell you. You know, it's pretty loud in that regard, but elegant as well at the same time. Now today I'm wearing Guerlain Derby, which is a vintage, and I thought it was quite fitting because this is a sort of little mini app, and we'd all, you know, through the course of the year, we talked about theophenol and some of these things that we all just, I love that. I love that we have different opinions on things, and you know, we've all got, oh, you're wrong, and well, I say that to people quite a lot, and you know, I don't really fucking mean it, but I also kind of do sometimes. But no, I think like, I think it's interesting. I like when we all reach a consensus and we all just, you know, love something with all our kind of hearts, and I think that's the case with you know, the vintage Derby, because it's just a wonderful perfume. It's got that like carnation element that I love, and it's got this kind of powdery leather, and then that aspect that you can't get. I don't know if it's from maceration and just age on some of the base materials in this perfume, but it's got a kind of fleshy, sort of more lived in feel than the newer Parisiennes one, which is still great, by the way, which to me has more of that toppy, cool, powdery sort of vibe to it, and less of that kind of deep leather. But they're still both amazing, you know, and the fact that like Guerlain have just decided, I mean, what Guerlain will do is turn around and bring Derby out again in a new bottle, maybe slightly reformulated and not as good, who knows, and they'll just charge like, you know, some ridiculous price for it. I'm hoping that they do that, to be honest. I mean, I don't really understand what's going on at Guerlain, but they do tend to recycle these things, so I'm not, I tend to leave that kind of you know, FOMO at the door, and kind of go, hey, you know, que sera, you know, we ain't got it anymore, but it could come back one day. I'm not going to seek out bottles because they are ridiculously expensive. I've had that ship has sailed, you know. I've been looking at plenty of them for like years, and I haven't bought one. So I do have a tiny little, now this was actually very kindly sent to me by Dan, that I've sprayed on today, but I do have a small, I think it's 8 ml or something like that, of the vintage in the little Eagle bottle, which I bought for a very reasonable price. So I do have a little bit of it stashed away, but I'm not going to worry about a big bottle too much. Dan actually got a 500 ml. It's not a factice or whatever. It's a real bottle, but it's just empty, which I mean, it's still pretty cool, and especially if you love this perfume, it would still be pretty cool to have empty bottles. But you know, I haven't got enough to buy actual perfume, so I'm not going to be buying any empty bottles anytime soon. Anyway, so that's my full 14. I hope that that you keep listening to the show. We really appreciate having you. I really appreciate the feedback and the nice comments and things that I get about the whole show and everything. And we hope to move on to sort of bigger and better things in the new year, and maybe have some guests or some additional content, or like things that we can do to add a bit of value and kind of make the show as what we think it can be. And yeah, I can't wait to come back and start anew in the whenever it's going to be. I don't know, in a couple of weeks or something like that. So when we've had a bit of time, I just thought I'd do this because it's a bit of like extra something for you. Hopefully, I'm under no illusion that people are kind of dead interested in what 14 fragrances I've been wearing, but it just kind of keeps my hand in, with the recording and the podcasting and whatever. And hopefully it was useful and it's something for you to listen to. Anywho, right. Thanks very much, and I'll see you later. Bye.